I have an idea. Let's do it backwards. Greetings, chromatic warriors! Well, it won't be quite backwards, but as I see it, this is a reversal of my traditional theory. Ordinarily, I approach models with cold shadows and warm highlights. It's a look. But in conversation with a student, I was admiring some artwork. I cannot pronounce this artist's name, but I'll share it on the screen. But what you have are warm shadows and cold highlights present on this, and it creates a very unique look. I've done something similar in the past, using magenta as a shadow and a frosty blue highlight, but as always, circling back and repeating an idea once or twice, you can start to refine things and improve upon it. So I chose to paint this rat because I'm all about what's hot, and currently the Skaven are very hot. And this look, I think it will function well on a beautiful model, but I'm more comfortable on monsters, so I will work with this monster. Alright, I'm starting out with a base coat of Dragon Red. I'll lay down 2 coats to allow some transparency. You can see my zenithal base coat showing through ever so slightly. And be sure to attack this from all angles. It's a very chunky model with a lot of overhangs. Just don't miss any spots. To make things a little bit warmer, I'm going to lay down a coat of Molten Orange. I'm applying this in a very broad sense as well. You can see how much coverage I'm getting on the surface from this, just doing a very broad zenithal downward spray of Molten Orange. And now things start to get weird. In that previous painting I was noticing green being the kind of in-betweener, the mid-tone, so I'm afraid to jump straight up to these icy blue tones. I'll lay down Pestilent Flesh instead. Following that, Stormwolf. Now it is time for the experiment to take shape. A compact, icy blue highlight is applied, producing some interesting variations. I chose a monster for this, but can see it working as well for a different subject. Keep these portions very small, just kind of practice your tiny dots. You know, even with the airbrush, you can bring it pretty close to the model without spraying things out to the side. Just lay in the very fine highlights. Now to fill some things in. I don't want to lose this effect, but I have some materials to bring up and I don't want this video to be dramatically long. Wet blending the base quickly with some Scarab Green and Castle Gray. Some dashes of color were added to the debris, but nothing too important. Just making some brownish wood and some reddish bricks. Very nice. For the metallic areas, I decided to just dilute down some gunmetal and glaze it over them. I wanted that same kind of red shadow progression to translate, so just creating a glaze but bring some metallic flake into play. I think this will work for me. I'm working along on this, and what is starting to worry me is a clash of styles. There's an effect to be carried over from the bulk of the model, keeping red shadows in mind and cold highlights, so I need to translate this onto all of the other materials that I didn't hit with the airbrush. For example, the loincloth. I'll mix black and Dragon Red as a foundation and then wet blend Castle Gray with a little Augur Blue to highlight. Ordinarily, I would combine just black and Castle Gray to start, but now I'm keeping everything toned correctly. Cold highlights, warm shadows. That was like almost difficult for me to say. Back to the flesh for some brushwork. Now, I started with grotesque green highlights, establishing the green tones again before the blue, but it didn't seem intense enough or match the shadows, so Prairie Ochre, my old friend, was brought in and it worked much better. I'll still use the grotesque green, but it was too intense for most areas. The jump in value is just too much, especially where the model is leaning over. You have all these lovely sculpted abdominal muscles. That is not going to catch the same intensity of highlight as the lumpy upper back. Things are looking better. I just remembered that I have a light to turn on behind myself. I'm going to be just refining a little bit further in some of the essential areas. I'll be taking a combination of Dragon Red and black, just laying some dark lining, panel lining, call it whatever you want. Look at what it's doing. Just do the thing that you see. It's easy. I'll also blend some shadows into place, just some of the broader, darker areas, the blade on the hand, some of the panels on the very large shoulder plate. There's some indentations, just some major areas to be picked out. Time for a little fun. I'm going to bring in a all-over diluted wash of ruddy fur from the speed paint line. This will unify everything. It's going to bring more of a red hue back into the piece as a whole, looking very Blanche-like. And it'll also just satisfy some of those blends. There's a lot of texture on this model that a wash like this, speed paint, can really cling to and do its thing. Once that was all dry, I'll quickly apply some highlights with my castrated brush. I'm going to bring some mithril into place. It's really doing work having a blunted brush like that to kind of create this ruddy kind of hand-pounded texture. Of course, I'll have to go in there with a sharper brush to get the smaller areas, but every job has a tool. And finally, highlighting the rest of this beast with frost blue. And if you want to be crazy, like me, you'll be mixing frost blue and prairie ochre in various combinations. Just like we were talking about the model leaning over, it's lunging forward. You want to adhere to those values. It's not going to be the same level of brightness, but subtle mixtures of frost blue and prairie ochre will get you there. And I do enjoy those pure frost blue highlights up in those brightest areas. Oh yes, and Warpstone, that funky stuff that rats go crazy for. I'm not going to leave that out of this tutorial. Starting from a nice saturated foundation of green skin, very simple. Just remember that light is light, so I want these to appear bright. I'm not going to go so deep on the shadows. Green skin will be the limit. On top of that, I'll be layering it up with some rainforest. A nice nuclear-powered green, and apply this very gradually. Try to accent the irregular slopes, so you've got this kind of carved-up shape where it curves in slightly. My highlight here is somewhat broad. And I'll also pull some edge highlights up on the scars in the surrounding areas. Give me a nice, easy, accomplishable OSL effect. It's pretty low effort just to pick out the edges that are facing that green light source. And following up on that, I go back to green skin and dilute some down and just line it into the crevices, making sure everything is nice mid-green down in the cracks. And to cap it off, a very fine edge highlight of Vivid Volt. I have not used this color yet. I'm still making my way through every color in the Fanatic line, but this one really did it for me. All right. Another miniature inspired by my kind of side quest into fine art. And it's certainly a look. This is a way to render things completely. As we saw in the painting, it wouldn't make much sense if the ground wasn't painted with the same kind of red rooted shadows in mind, right? It's a way to make things look different on the tabletop. It's a style to work in, or I don't mind the way that this rat kind of stands apart from other models it's up against. It gives it a kind of unreal feeling. It makes it look different and wrong, which is good. So thank you for coming along with me on this journey. You can take this little technique, put it in your pocket for the future. A situation will arise where this will be most necessary. So appreciate your support on Patreon. Always feel free to ask questions. Let me know how you feel about the tutorials in the comments section down below. I'll respond to everything. Until we meet again, my friends, on a much cooler day, remain unchanged.